We're launching the Bush Heritage Science and Research Plan. This is a 10-year strategy running to 2025 that will set out the direction, the approach, goals and objectives for our science program at Bush Heritage. Bush Heritage reserves and partner properties support hundreds of vertebrate species, thousands of plants and innumerable invertebrates. The research that we are undertaking through our science and research plan with our partners will not only tell us or inform us about which species are present on these reserves, but what the threats to those ecosystems and species are and how best to manage them. So for example, we have over 70 threatened animals and 90 threatened plants on Bush Heritage reserves that we know about, probably more that are still yet to be discovered. And this research will improve our conservation management and the way we look after these species to ensure that we still have them there in another 50, 100, 200 years. We need to do this because we've got a biodiversity crisis in this country. We're losing species at a great rate. 1 in 3 of our mammals is at threat. We've got the impending impacts of climate change coming down on top of us, as well as numerous pervasive threats. We know generally why species are declining, why ecosystems are in trouble, but we don't have all the tools and all the knowledge that we need to rectify that. We don't know what's the most efficient way to do things, what's the most effective way, or in some cases, what do we need to do in the first place. With the Bush Heritage Science and Research Plan, we're hoping to double our research capacity over the next 10 years. We currently have about 40 collaborative research projects underway, and we're hoping to double that in the next 10 years through a range of innovative new programs, such as new scholarship programs, internships, and major research partnerships with academics in universities, government, other NGOs and the like. In terms of threatened species, we have a number of projects that are targeted at a particular threatened species. We've been involved, again in partnership with the Department of Parks and Wildlife in Western Australia, with the translocation program for the red-tailed phascogale. This is a small marsupial that's once extensive across southern Australia, is now restricted to woodlands, a small part of southwestern WA. Small tree-hopping marsupial that hops from tree to tree and nests in tree hollows.
I had a phone call from a colleague in Deepore, Department of Parks and Wildlife, and they were looking for somewhere to translocate phascogales from the wild, red-tailed phascogales from the wild to another wild site. And because Kojonups in their old habitat range, although there aren't any there weren't any phascogales here before we put them here, they were really interested in this reserve. It had wandoo, it had she oak, it had everything they needed.
We've actually done a wild-to-wild translocation and put some of these little critters back in our Kojonup reserve, provided them with nest boxes for habitat, made sure we've got the feral predators under control, the foxes and the cats, managed the rabbits so that the understory is there that they feed on. And this program is going really well. So from an initial translocation of around about 30 animals over 2 seasons, they're now self-sustaining, they're breeding, we've got new recruits coming into the population. So essentially we've established a new population of a nationally vulnerable species on Kojonup Reserve, which is a really great outcome. A project that we're doing is a major restoration project on Scottsdale Reserve. This again is in partnership with Greening Australia and academics at Australian National University, where they're looking at our restoration techniques to seeing what is the best way that we can actually get a better survival or germination and survival rate of the plants that we put back in the ground. So we're trying to restore a grassy box woodland and temperate grasslands across 300 hectares on the valley floor at Scottsdale. How best do we do that? So in partnership with academics and students at ANU.
We've had over 95% success from the plantings of July 2013. We're now this afternoon monitoring the winter of 2014 plantings with and without mechanically augured holes. So it's been planting the keystone overstory species, which is a range of eucalypts, yellow box, apple box, black Sally, which prefers creek lines and wetter soils, and then a mid-story of acacias and other shrubs. And so it's trying to return that the framework species in this landscape to provide a range of ecosystem services, fancy name for habitat for wildlife, and some competition from the exotic pasture grasses that I'm standing on.
Obviously feral cats are a major threat and a major focus for us. We're looking at it across a number of reserves, and we're partnering with the University of Tasmania in a new innovative study in the Tasmanian Midlands that's looking at behavioural responses of native species to see how they perceive the landscape, and therefore to see how they perceive threats posed by feral cats. And in doing so, looking at how we can, again, best plan our management, both our restoration management and our active management of the feral cats themselves, to best enhance the habitat and the landscape for the native species. And in Tasmania, they still hang on to a number of the critical weight range mammals, Tasmanian bettongs, eastern barred bandicoots, and these sorts of small mammals that are extinct on the mainland. So it's very important that we maintain them in these landscapes.
The Midlands region of Tasmania, it's an agricultural region, but it's also one of Australia's biodiversity hotspots for both plants and animals.
The beauty of these projects is that people are coming in with the expertise to monitor what wildlife may be existing in these areas, and it will set a benchmark for us hopefully so that we can understand whether those populations are increasing, decreasing, what we can do to help with the management of them.
Scientific research is important because it underpins our response to Australia's biodiversity crisis. 1 in 3 of our mammals is threatened with extinction. Australia has one of the worst rates of mammals extinction in the world, and we're losing species at an alarming rate. In order for us to address these problems, we need sound underpinning to what we're doing. Science and research provides us with that knowledge that informs our management strategies. We want to use our reserves and partner properties as field laboratories to build on this base and also to generate new knowledge that will help us with our conservation strategies and programs across the country. The research generated through Bush Heritage Science program will be used to inform not only our own conservation management but that of our partners and particularly our Indigenous partners for their conservation management around the country. So science is the foundation of what we do. It will be used to inform where we invest, how we invest, and how we actively manage those landscapes and ecosystems on the ground. We're very much interested in two-way learning from our partners, be they private landholders, be they Indigenous groups, be they other NGOs, and learning from experience and then using new research to build on that experience to generate new knowledge which will help inform our conservation strategies and actions around the country.